Something extremely strange is going on in sim racing, and it's all to do with a story that I've been following for a while now, and it's all come to a massive dramatic head. And it's to do with the Project Motor Racing GT500 DLC. Now this is a DLC, a paid DLC from Project Motor Racing that they launched recently. They gave me a review copy. I actually quite liked a lot of elements in it when I reviewed it, but there are a few things that I found strange. I found it very strange that for a paid DLC, the track that comes with it is called Takimiya. Now when I got the review copy, I was really excited to try this DLC because I'd never heard of Takimiya, so I thought this is going to be a brand new circuit. It's a bit like if Gran Turismo added a fictional circuit. I'd be really interested to try and learn this circuit for the first time. But when I booted up the DLC, and I selected the track, it looked a little bit familiar. And that's because Takimiya is actually Okayama, and Okayama is a free licensed track in iRacing that I spent a lot of time driving. I actually really enjoy Okayama, but it's a very different expectation for me because I thought I was getting a new circuit Takimiya I've never heard of, but actually I'm getting an unlicensed version of Okayama. And whereas when you launch a game, you know, what you get is what you get in the game, for paid DLC it's very interesting when you think about it, because Project Motor Racing couldn't officially call this Okayama, they couldn't market it Okayama, so they could never say this is Okayama. So therefore I think a lot of people would maybe buy this DLC thinking this is Takimiya, a different circuit, when it's actually Okayama. Now I raised this in my review video, and the Project Motor Racing Revolutionary Guard Corps, who's like the super hardcore defenders of Project Motor Racing, said, Kireth, you're talking nonsense, everyone will not care that this is unlicensed, they'll just know that it's Okayama. Now what the Project Motor Racing Revolutionary Guard Corps don't appreciate is that I've been in YouTube for a very long time, and I listen to all of your comments and feedback, and I know what the sim racing community is like, and I know there's so many people in the sim racing community that would buy this thinking it's Takimiya, not Okayama, and then there'll be a little bit of a disconnect. Whether it's a bad thing or not is a bit more subjective, but I do think there would be a disconnect. The other thing is, I noticed that the liveries in the GT500 DLC didn't seem to exactly match up with Super GT liveries. So they seem to be similar, and some of them look to have the same sponsors, but a lot of them seem to be kind of invoking Super GT but not official. And again, I found that a bit unusual because for a paid DLC, you might want to really immerse yourself in the licensed world of Super GT, both the classic cars and the new cars. And I actually made a video on what Project Motor Racing can learn from Le Mans Ultimate, because Le Mans Ultimate has become very successful. And one of the topics in that video that I said was licensed content. Le Mans Ultimate is all licensed content, fully licensed, and it gives it a little bit of like a premium feel to the game. It gives it a quality that Project Motor Racing just doesn't have. It's kind of hard to explain in words. When you put them side by side, you can understand it. And as I did the research for that video, I saw that actually Le Mans Ultimate had taken shots already at Project Motor Racing when Le Mans Ultimate said that they had the officially licensed version of Silverstone, which is an obvious shot at Project Motor Racing, which has a circuit called Northampton.
The second track joining the officially licensed Silverstone in Pack 2 of the ELMS Season Pass.
Which is again something that I raised when I initially reviewed Project Motor Racing, that, you know, it's great to have Silverstone in the game, Silverstone's not in Gran Turismo, but the fact it's Northampton might just take a little bit of the shine away from it from some players. So to summarise the story so far, Project Motor Racing came out with a GT500 DLC that basically contains Super GT cars. I reviewed it, I actually kind of enjoyed the content, I enjoy the track fundamentally, I enjoy driving the cars. I said there's some redeeming features here, these are kind of steps in the right direction Project Motor Racing. However, I find it a bit weird that it's all unlicensed but they're charging for it. I just find that I can't quite work that out. Fast forward to today, and the GT500 DLC has been taken down from sale by Project Motor Racing. You can no longer buy this DLC. And this is fascinating because obviously something has happened. And given that Le Mans Ultimate has already fired shots at Project Motor Racing, as I've shown you in this video, given that we know that iRacing has a license for Okayama, and it's a big draw for iRacing in my opinion, that if you get the iRacing subscription, you get, for inverted commas, free Okayama. Like I said, I've had some fantastic racing at Okayama, I've done some coaching at Okayama, I've done some really cool events at Okayama. It's a big draw for iRacing, and presumably they pay Okayama for the likeness, for the license for Okayama. Also, Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo has Super GT cars and it has the actual liveries in them. It has classic cars and new cars, and this is something I noticed when I reviewed the Project Motor Racing DLC, was that it didn't have the Pennzoil liveried Nissan Skyline, which was an absolutely iconic car and was a legendary car in Gran Turismo, and that I covered a lot when it came to Gran Turismo 7. So Gran Turismo has some sort of licensing going on with Super GT cars. It may have a license with Super GT, I don't know. I know that it has Super Formula cars, but Gran Turismo, obviously a Japanese game, exists in this space. So what has happened here? I think maybe 4 things could have happened. And maybe all have happened at the same time, by the way, but I want to know your thoughts in the comments. So let me know what your thoughts in the comments, whether you're part of the Revolutionary Guard Corps or not. So the first thing is that, obviously, Le Mans Ultimate could have complained. Le Mans Ultimate could have said, hey, you know, what are Project Motor Racing doing here using this unlicensed circuit? I don't think that's super likely, because they surely would have complained about Northampton and Silverstone, and also Brianza for Monza, and there's other unlicensed circuits for Project Motor Racing. Le Mans Ultimate doesn't really have a dog in the fight for Okayama, because Okayama isn't a WEC round. So that's a little bit unlikely, but I just thought it was interesting that Le Mans Ultimate are aware of what Project Motor Racing is doing. The second one is that iRacing could have complained. Now this one seems maybe more likely. Part of the reason for that, and by the way, if you watch my sim racing show, so every week we cover all of the sim racing news in the sim racing show on this channel, and also my weekly newsletter, there'll be links in the description, you will have seen that iRacing has had to drop Laguna Seca from the free content, and Laguna Seca was also a massive draw, by the way, for iRacing. In my opinion, having Laguna Seca as inverted commas free content was massive. So that had to go from iRacing, and it went to Race Room. So Race Room now has Laguna Seca, I think, as part of its free-to-play offering. So there's been a lot of licensing going on with Laguna Seca. Presumably money has changed hands, and it does affect the value proposition of the Sims. You know, iRacing has lost out a little bit here. Race Room has gained a little bit, let's say. So the fact that Project Motor Racing come in and just put Okayama in and maybe have not paid for the license, we can presume that sensibly because they haven't called it Okayama. iRacing might legitimately say, hey, you can't do that because we're paying for it and that's a draw for our sim. So I think that one is more likely. Also Gran Turismo. Like, Gran Turismo is a behemoth here. Now again, Okayama is not in Gran Turismo, but the Super GT cars are in Gran Turismo, and Project Motor Racing is on console. So Project Motor Racing is really trying to go after Gran Turismo's lunch by being on console. The Super GT cars, this kind of DLC is exactly what a lot of people are saying should come to Gran Turismo 7, because they're adding stuff like the Renault Twingo, but people want Super GT cars. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gran Turismo are saying, hey, we're paying for Super GT stuff, you can't have it for free. The fourth option may be that Okayama have complained themselves, which would be really interesting. Now, from Okayama's perspective, it's all kind of like free publicity. Like, the more people drive the game in Sims, the more they might have affinity with the circuit, and that, you know, in the future that could be goodwill, whatever. But that's not outside the realms of possibility either. But something has gone on here. The DLC is currently not for sale. I think if you already have it and bought it, you can still use it. But whether that will continue, I'm not sure. Because if there is a licensing issue and there is potential damage being caused to some other party, then that damage may continue to be caused by people driving it. So I wouldn't rely on that DLC being available even if you bought it already. I don't know. Presumably what Project Motor Racing are going to have to do is they're going to have to, if they can get away with it, they're going to have to change all the liveries on the Super GT cars, if they can get away with that. They're also going to have to, if Okayama's involved, they're in a really tough situation. They might have to remove Okayama from the DLC, or Takimiya, I should say. And Project Motor Racing, if they want to do unlicensed, if they don't want to pay for licenses, they should create their own tracks, in my opinion. And that would actually be a good thing for Project Motor Racing, because that would be the only place you could get that circuit. And I know that they've done that before in Project Cars, etc. But they've always tried to, like, get close to real world stuff, and I just feel like just do what Gran Turismo does and create something truly iconic and original that will stand with your franchises over time. So something very unusual has gone on here. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like this sort of investigative journalism. I really enjoy kind of getting under the topics here and researching everything and trying to find out what's going on, and I'll see you in the next video.